Hey everybody, Grip here, and I'm working on getting my hunting bow ready and rolling for this year's hunting season. It's July, so it's a good time to do it. Make sure you have everything squared away. You definitely don't want to be doing this stuff last minute. Just put on a new set of strings and cables and a brand new rest, so that means I'm gonna have to get this bow tuned up. And one of my preferred methods is the walk back tune. So let's talk about how we want to do that. Let's talk a little bit about the walkback tune. As its name would suggest, this is a way to verify that your center shot on your bow is set properly by walking back away from the target and taking a series of shots to analyze your left and rights. All right. Now, there are a couple things that we need to go over first, but let's talk about why the walkback tune is one of my preferred methods. Before I was too involved in this whole archery gig and I was just starting off as a simple bow hunter, I didn't have a lot of tools and resources readily available. So I had to, when I put a new rest on a bow, I had to learn how to make sure that it was set properly with what I had available to me. And in my world, I have found that keeping things simple is very advantageous, and that's why I like the walkback tune. Very simple, minimal tools. You won't need a bow press. You won't need to shim any cams. You won't need to twist the yoke and so on and so forth. You can basically do this with just a set of Allen wrenches. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about how we get things started. What we want to start with is, all things being equal, I just had my bow in the vise over there, and I got the rest in, I got the level set, got the nock set, my loop tied. I went ahead and drew back and got my peep sight set in. So now all I need to do is to begin with getting that center shot set. And the first thing I will do is I will line the string up with the cam. All right, so let me demonstrate. All right, so first thing we're gonna need to do is we're gonna wanna eyeball, what I call eyeballing the string alignment with the cams and an arrow knocked up on the bow and on the rest. So I put it in a vise. If you don't have a vise, you can do this freehand. I did it freehand for many years before I invested in a good vise. But for our purposes here, I'm gonna go ahead and put the bow in the vise and try to show you what I'm talking about. What I want to do is I want to make sure that when I look at this string, that it lines up with the track on the cam. So let me get my hand here and see if I can get the focus. Right there on the string, you can see that it is lined up with the cam so that it is right down the middle. And then I want to come down here and I want the string, as I look down the string, I want the string to go right down the arrow shaft, just like that. You can see the arrow shaft is right behind the string. So the string kind of goes right down the shaft, and I'm trying to do this freehand, I apologize. And if I go back up here, make sure that the cam and string are still in alignment, which they are. And you can also eyeball it with the bottom cam, so the string goes right down the arrow. And you look, it lines up with the track on the bottom cam. And so everything is in that vertical alignment. And that is how, and again, I apologize for the lack of focus here, but that is how we get our eyeballed rest set. All right, so not the clearest video, but basically what I was trying to demonstrate there is, as I stand behind the bow, as if I were holding it to shoot it, and I line the string up, I want that string to line up with the cam track that the string is in on both, so that the basically the string will block my view of that track of the cam, and then simultaneously I will scan down and look and make sure that the string lines up with the shaft of the arrow so that it blocks my view of the arrow shaft. And a lot of times when you go to start, you'll look and you'll have the cam lined up, and you'll look down and that arrow will be pointing out this way to the outside for a right-handed archer, or it'll be pointing out this way in towards the bow, and you can tell that it needs to be adjusted either in or back out, because the arrow will point out to the outside, or the string just won't block it. And so you tap the rest over so that you bring it over. The string blocks the view of the arrow while it's lined up with the cam track, and that's going to get you pretty close. And then at that point, that's when we're ready to go start shooting at the line on the bail. All right, now that we have the rest eyeballed in, again, lining up that string with the cams and the arrow, getting it close, then what we want to do is we want to take our first shot. So what I like to do is I take my first shot at about 2 yards away, and on my bail I have a cord, an elastic cord from an old pullover. You know how a lot of these pullovers will have the elastic cord around the waistband, and I really don't need any help keeping things tight around my waistband. So I pull those elastic cords out, and I use them. One of the things I use them for, a lot of different things, but one of the things I use them for is to run a string down my bail. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Insert video clip here. All right, so this is my indoor bail here in the basement range. This is the elastic band that I was talking about here on the bail. I prefer to use the elastic band for a couple reasons. I feel it gives the advantage of having a very narrow, thin, definite line to shoot at. I can move it if I need to. If I've got a spot that's shot up, I can push this off to the side, whereas a painted line is pretty permanent. The other part about this is when an arrow, if I actually hit this band, it will usually just push it out of the way, and as the arrow penetrates the target, the band will get pushed out of the way and it won't really damage the band. I can feel a lot of spots on this band, rough spots, where I've struck this elastic band many times, and it's still in good shape. So this is what I'm talking about on using my elastic band inside. All right, so I have that elastic cord along the bail, and I will stand at about 2 yards. And at this point, I'm not real worried about my elevation. I'll stand at 2 yards and I'll shoot at that line. And I'll look at where my arrow impact is, and I want to be right on that line. I want arrows hitting that line at 2 yards. And if I'm a little off right or left, I'll move my sight to make sure that I know that at that close range that my sight is on that line. Then I will move back to my 15 yards in my basement, and I'll take another shot at that line. And I know I'm on at 2, so if I shoot back at 15 and my right or left is out, then I'll know that it's probably my rest is just a little bit out of center. So to walk you through, if I hit the line at 2 yards and I'm just left of the line for a right-handed archer, if I'm left of the line at 15 yards, then I'll know my rest is kicked out just a little bit, and I'll want to move my rest to the right just a little until I'm hitting that line at 15 yards. Once I'm hitting that line at 15 yards by making my rest adjustments, I'll then walk back up to 2 and I'll shoot again and make sure that everything is lined up at 2 yards and at 15 yards. And once I have that range set, 90% of the time, that's all I'm going to need. For most of our bow hunting shots, especially here in the Midwest, most of the time they're 20 or inside 25 yards or so. 15 yards, if I'm shooting at 10 and I'm hitting at 15 at 2 and at 15, chances are my center shot is set. But just to make sure, I like to re-verify and double check things, and I'll go outside and shoot at longer ranges. All right, so we've eyeballed it. And now we're going to take our first 2 shots at 2 yards. All right, that's right on it. That's pretty good. Let's do one more just to make sure. And I'm going to hold this one a little lower just so I don't blow up that knock. There we go. We're right there on the line. So let's back up and try 2 more at 15 yards. All right, those are looking pretty good. All right, those last 2 shots were at 15. You can see we're pretty close here on the line. This one actually bisected the 2, and that one is just right on it. So for my purposes, that's pretty good, and that's probably going to prove that my center shot is right on as it is right now. But we still want to go outside and just make sure and double check. So now that I'm going to be shooting at longer ranges, I want to take the time, and I also want to make sure that my elevation is good on my 20-yard pin, or if you shoot a single pin slider or dial-up kind of sight, you want to make sure that your 20-yard setting is on at 20 yards. And you want to take, what I do then is I will have a line on my bail. Sometimes it's the elastic line. Sometimes I have on my bail, I have dots on one side, and on the other side I have lines painted. Usually though, once you get a little further away, you're going to need a thicker line. So for our purposes here, I have an old piece of cardboard that I've used before to do my walk back tune, pinned it to the bail, and you can see here I've taken some shots. So right here, these arrow holes are on target. You can see this group down here. I'm a little, for you guys, I'm a little right of the line. You're right, my left. So that means my rest was in just a little bit, and so I move that out until I'm hitting that line. So on my bails out in the yard, I have painted lines a little wider, usually about a ½ inch or so, and I will shoot at 20 yards. And if I'm hitting at 20 yards, then I will walk back. Now, this is where the term walk back tune comes into play. So I will move back to 30 yards and or 40 yards. Now, one thing that a lot of times people will make a mistake is as they go to 30, they'll shoot their 30-yard mark or their 30-yard pin. And when they go to 40, they'll shoot their 40-yard. So, you know, hopefully we remember from middle school science class when we talked about the scientific method, and you have your hypothesis, you test your hypothesis by performing an experiment. Remember, in your experiment, every experiment must only have one variable to be a valid experiment. So if you're working on moving your rest and you're using 2 different sight marks, you've now entered 2 variables. So what you want to remember to do is this entire time you're shooting at this line, you're only using your 20-yard mark. Because if your rest is good and your sight pins are not level with the bow and are not perfectly vertical, then as you walk back, you'll get some right and lefts. So if you're using different sight marks, it may give you the mistaken impression that your rest is out when really your sights are out. So stay with that 20-yard mark. Clearly, you're going to hit low as you walk back. If your bail is big enough and you have a long enough line, you want to make sure you're shooting as you walk back further. Make sure you're shooting towards the top of that line. And as you walk back, hopefully, you're going to be right there on that line. So as long as you're hitting that line at those multiple ranges, again, only shooting off that 20-yard mark, then you know your center shot is good. And now you can go back and work on setting your pins or your sight tape for those different yardages. All right, so that's an easy guide to how to walk back tune. Hopefully it will simplify your bow setup process and get you guys ready for the deer woods. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you guys later.